today I am going to talk about the energy of creation and specifically learning how to truly align with that energy, because most of us in this room have probably heard about law of attraction, which actually is superseded by law of vibration. And so we hear, okay, well, if you just align to that energy, if you switch your frequency, you can get in alignment of it. So what does that really mean, and how does it really work? Because it's one thing to hear that, but again, when we hear things, we process it one way, we look at it, we hear it, but if we don't understand it, and if we don't really grasp it at a deeper level, if we don't grasp it subconsciously, then those old beliefs, those patterns of behaviors can tend to crop up for us. And this is why we may not actually be achieving the things that we set our mind to, even though we may be thinking, wait a minute, I put it on my vision board, I'm thinking about it, I'm putting my energy into there, I'm trying to align with it. But at the same time, we don't realize it, that there are certain behaviors or certain words maybe that we're saying, and words are very powerful. They can change the energetic frequency. So you have to watch those things, because that's going to be important when you're trying to actually line yourself with what you truly want. So if we aren't aware of those things, then we can actually be holding ourselves back. And that's when we get into that kind of that hustle mentality. I got to get it done. I'm hustling and all of these things, whereas you're not in that flow state. And I'm sure at some point, if you think about it, everybody in this room has probably been able to bring something into their existence, something that they wanted, or have something happen that just seems so easy and so natural. And the reality is that it should be easy and natural. We shouldn't be on this hamster wheel of trying to go, 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 go. That's a societal conditioning that was taught to us early on, but it doesn't have to be that way, and it is certainly not taught that way. And when you get into starting to understand what you're really comprised of, you start to grasp this idea that you are actually one with everything. So I want to kind of walk you through how this really works and kind of give you a detailed explanation, because I think when you can understand it and you hear it, sometimes it sinks in a little bit more and you start to see, oh, okay, I can start to tap into that, so you can start to demonstrate it. So first of all, we have probably many times heard the fact that you are a spiritual being having a human experience. You are a spiritual being living in a human body, right? Well, what does that really mean? Well, the fact is that we are comprised of atoms, and we are 99% of really empty space, of nothingness, of empty space. Yet, atoms make up 100% of our universe. Everything that we can see, all of these things are made out of nothingness. Why is that? Well, the energy of the law of vibration tells us it's because, and science tells us, that it's because this energy is vibrating at such a rate of frequency that it creates this visual imagery for us, right? So it's like this item that's there. But this is important to understand, because when you realize that you are really not this body is kind of like a rental car. You're not this body, but you're a spiritual ball of energy. And when you understand that you're a spiritual ball of energy, then you can start to connect to the idea that you are part of the whole. That's what holograms are. That's what the holographic word means, is that every piece contains a part of the whole. So you contain a part of the whole spirit, the whole universal mind. The physics of, who was it? The father of quantum physics. It was the father of quantum physics, Max Planck, who actually won a Nobel Peace Prize, who says that there is really no matter. All matter exists by virtue of a force, a life force. And he called that force divine mind, or the divine matrix. And so if you connect to that idea and you realize, look, if I'm just a spiritual being, I'm a ball of energy, and I'm part of the whole, I am part of the whole life force, this whole thing that created us, and it doesn't matter what you call that energetic ball of creation. Alan Watts says you can't get wet by the word water. So it doesn't matter if you actually call it God, Buddha, if you Allah, whatever it is, but I do believe, for me, I was raised Christian, so I always call universal energy, I refer to it as spirit, I refer to it as my higher power, I refer to it as God. So it doesn't really matter, but the fact is, we know, science has told us that there is this universal energy that is running through this world. And that is the thing that is responsible for creation. And so when you can start to get yourself into the mindset that, look, I am part of that. And as part of that, I can tap into that cosmic oneness, that universal energy. This is why in the Bible it says, and Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within. Well, it's within because you are part of that. So when you can start to tap into that, it becomes a little bit easier to start to say, oh, wow, how do I actually align with that now so that I can actually start to attract what I want into my life? And what happens then is that you are not coming from this feeling of needing. It's not this, oh my gosh, I need this. Oh my gosh, I have to have this. Instead, it's replaced by a belief because you start to realize that as part of this universal energy and this spirit, when you really tap into the fact that you are a ball of energy vibrating at a higher rate of frequency so that you can take on this mass, this form, then you realize that you are complete, you are whole, you are worthy as you are. And when you understand that you are worthy as you are, then you open yourself up to realizing all of those blessings that Spirit truly wants to give you. We live in an abundant universe, but we start pushing things aside because of our own limiting beliefs, because of whatever that programming was, whatever we heard, whatever we tapped into, whatever. And usually whatever affects us the most is something that has some kind of emotion attached to it. So you're in school and you answer the question incorrectly and your teacher ridicules or people laugh at you, but you're young and it hits you and you go, oh man, I'm so crazy. I can't believe it. I didn't understand that. They're all laughing at me. Carry some kind of energy around it of emotion. And so all of a sudden we start to pull back and we create this belief that, oh my gosh, I don't want to raise my hand in class anymore because when I do, I get shunned and I get laughed at, I get ridiculed, whatever it may be. So there's all these different things that start to crop up. But when we can step back from that and we can get into the understanding of what we're really comprised of, what are we really comprised of? Well, if we're comprised of this spirit, we are part of this overall being that is part of an overall collective consciousness for everything, then when we say, listen, all you have to do is change your frequency, and I'm sure you've heard it, it's like a radio. Change your frequency on the radio. Change it to a different station if you don't like what you're getting. Well, if that's the case, if you don't like it, yeah, change it. But you get to make that choice. You get to make that choice. It's your decision, and it starts with decision. And that decision, though, is backed by understanding who you actually are, and that you as an individual, or the very fact that you are here today, that you are breathing, that you are living, means that you are complete as you are whole, and you are worthy. And truthfully, you don't need anything. I understand there are things that we desire, things that we need, that makes things life simpler. Obviously, people will say, well, I need money, Kim. You don't understand. I need more money so that I can get this, this, and this. But is that really true? Like, let me give you an example. When we understand that everything is 99% just energy, and it's vibrating, right? And we understand that we can connect to that. Well, then how might it be possible to gain the thing that you want without the money? Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have to have the money. Maybe you'll get that money, but maybe it could come in a different way. So let me give you an example of this. Years ago, I didn't really even feel like I was thinking so much about this, but I was young. I was probably, 14 or 15 at the time. And a lot of my friends had these beach cruisers. And I was like, wow, those beach cruisers are so cool. I really want a bike like that. Now, my favorite color is turquoise. And I'm like, I would love a turquoise beach cruiser, man. I just think that'd be so great. I would like a basket in the front so I could throw stuff in there. I could ride down to the beach and hang out with my friends, etc., right? And all of a sudden, my dad's at the bank. And while he's at the bank, they have a raffle. And he sees right there in front of him. Now, I haven't even mentioned this to my dad. But he sees right there in front of him, he sees this turquoise beach cruiser. Of course, it's turquoise, and of course, it has a basket on it as well. Why? Because I've already thought this. Now, see, at that time, I was probably, I think, 13 or 14 years old. So I'm not conditioned with all these things from the outside world that's telling me, hey, you got to go to work and you got to get a job and you have to earn this much money in order to buy the beach cruiser and blah, 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 blah. I'm not. I am just at this young state just thinking, wow, that'd be really cool. My friends have that. I would like that too. I let it go. And here's the power in understanding how to demonstrate what you want in your life. You ask, you surrender. You ask, you trust, you believe, you surrender to it. Because there is so much power in the surrendering to it. Because when you don't, and we hold on and we hold on and we hold on, how am I going to get it? How am I going to get the money? How am I going to do this? I've got to take this job. I have to do this, blah, blah, blah. We start pushing it away. We start blocking it, because what we're doing is we're now lowering that vibration, and we're now changing our dial back to, all of a sudden we stretched it and we pushed our dial up to, hey, I'm raising my vibration because now I believe and I know I can actually have this because I've thought about it, because the very fact that you thought about it means that you can actually attain it. So then if we start going, but how? But how am I going to get it? But oh my gosh, I have to do this. I have to do that. And we start putting all these other demands on how it's going to appear and come into our world, then we start dialing that frequency back down to a different lower vibration. So we want to be able to surrender that. Well, I thought about it and I just kind of let it go, and I would hang out with my friends and I would get on the backs of their bikes, etc. All of a sudden my dad comes home one day with what? That brand new shiny turquoise beach cruiser with the basket right in front. And it was mine. He just won it. He absolutely just won it. Never even thought to even ask my siblings if they wanted it. But why didn't he even think to ask my siblings if they wanted it? Because it wasn't there. It wasn't even a thought for them. The energy was right there, and I had already thought about it, and my dad had picked up on that. Why? Because it's part of collective consciousness. So when you say, I need more clients, I want this, I need to get this, I need more money, you have to think in terms of the end result. Like, what is it that you want? Really ask yourself, what do you want? And change the words from I need to I get to. What would it feel like if? Because you're switching your vibration. You're doing it subtly, but you're switching your vibration. And remember, you're getting in connection with that energy. Everything is energetic in nature. Flash forward years later. I'm divorced and I have a big Suburban. Driving the kids around, I'm going to work, I'm driving my kids to everything. I have 4 kids. So we are at baseball, little league, we are at dance, we are at, I don't know, arts and crafts. We're at everything. We're driving all around the place. Suburbans are a big gas guzzler. And at that time, gas was like it is now. There was another time, I can't remember what year it was, but gas was really expensive again. And I was driving all over the place with this. And I was thinking one day, man, I really got to change this. I have an 8-cylinder vehicle. I got to switch this. And wouldn't it be nice to have something that, is just not as much of a gas guzzler, that's a little bit newer. Lo and behold, out of the blue, I just had that thought. I kind of let it go. Now, I didn't put all the parameters around it about like, well, Kimmy, if you sell this, you can get this amount of money, blah, 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 blah. I know how our minds work. They do that. This was just a thought, and I started connecting to the energy of the thought. What would it feel like for me to get in that car and smell that new leather in that car? And wouldn't it be so much easier if I had, in my head, I was thinking it'd be so much easier if I had a minivan, because I could open the side door and I could put the car seat in without having to jump into the back seat and blah, 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 all those different things that take place. So in my head, I'm thinking minivan. Yeah, that'd be so much easier. That's it. Let it go. I get a call from my brother-in-law. My sister and her husband had a second home about an hour north of me. He calls me out of the blue one day and he says, hey, your sister and I were just having a conversation, and I was thinking, you're still driving that Suburban around, and I know that's got to be such a gas guzzler right now for you, and with all the stuff that you're doing with the kids. We have this car that we just bought, and it's sitting in the garage in this second home, and, he's so kind. Here's how he says it. I was thinking, do you mind if you would just take that off our hands? Because we're not really using it. It's a minivan, and we don't need a minivan. There's just the two of us. Hello. What do I get? Delivered to my doorstep a week later is a brand spanking new minivan. Bucket seats, leather seats. I mean, it was a Mac Daddy of the minivans. It had everything, all the bells and whistles. Dropped into my lap out of basically thin air, right? Why? Because I'm thinking about it, but I'm not getting all hung up in all the different plans. And listen, as a business coach, I understand that there has to be plans. There do. You have to get into action. But at the same time, I want you to realize that part of this is asking for what you want, putting it out there with the belief and the faith that you will attain it. But then you take the action. You don't just sit there and say, oh, here's my vision board, hang it up on the wall, and then walk away and do nothing. There has to be some kind of steps. For me, the steps started with, let me think about what that would feel like. What do I want? What do I want? I want a minivan. Why do you want the minivan? Because it'll be so much easier to open the doors to get the kids, all these different little things, right? So I started getting more in tune with what that was. What am I doing? I'm raising my vibration. I'm getting in alignment with that energy. I'm understanding the why behind why it's important to me and how the safety issue there is important to me. So I'm actually aligning that. But then I'm going about my business. I'm kind of setting it out there and I'm saying, you know what? Here you go, God. I know you're going to work on that for me. And when the time's right, it will appear in my life. I'm going to trust that. Now, I don't know how it's going to appear. It could be that maybe somebody offers me money for the Suburban and I end up buying one. I don't know. But that doesn't matter because I don't have to get so caught up in the how. But I do have to ask for what I want. And that's why you're always taught. You hear this from Esther Hicks. You hear this from Dr. Wayne Dyer used to talk about it. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about it now. You ask for what you want and be clear on what it is that you want. Because listen, you will get what you want depending on where you place your focus and your energy. See, that's why it's important to take a look at your behaviors and what you're saying. I have a friend of mine who wants to have many different people, friends and family, come to her house for holidays. She wants it to be the big gathering place. And yet, one of my friends that she invited is dating a guy. She was dating a guy for a couple of months at the time. And now they're actually married. But at the time she was dating this gentleman for a couple of months. And she said, hey, I'm having this event, blah, 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 come to the house. And she goes, oh my God, that's so great. Can I invite Ray? And she goes, I'm so sorry, but I don't have enough chairs. Okay. Now what is that telling you? I understand that that's extreme, but she so wanted to have her house be the gathering place for people. But at the same time, her words and her actions, her behavior was completely contradictory to what she truly wanted. She was only allowing the amount of people that could come based on how many people she could fit around the table, how many chairs she could fit at that table. Now, yes, that's extreme, but it's a great way to illustrate what it is that we do in our own life. So I'm going to ask you, take a look at what you're saying. Does it align with what it is that you truly want? Take a look at your actions. Take a look at your behavior. Is it aligning with what you truly say that you want? And if it's not, then you're going to have to take a look at how you can start to make those adjustments. Either that, or you may want to take a look at, wow, is this what I truly want? Am I on track here? Is this really resonating with me? Because you will find out when you are brutally honest with yourself. When you are brutally honest with yourself, you will gain a little bit more clarity. And it's kind of hard to do this because it asks us to truly take a good deep dive and look inside and say, hey, how important is that to me? And when we look at that and we say, how important is that to me? That causes us to get in touch with the why behind it. What's the reason for it? Why is this important to me? And when you can get into touch with that, then it helps you to understand whether or not you're truly on track towards what you desire. And if it is what you truly want. So it's important to pay attention to the words, the actions, your behaviors. Take a look around you. What's showing up in your existence? If you are somebody that says, listen, I wanted to make $60,000 a year and I finally hit $60,000 a year. Now I'm ready to stretch myself into $100,000 a year. And then all of a sudden you have a month that you're filled with clients and you're making a ton of money, and all of a sudden you're hitting that level and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm on track. I'm going to hit $100,000 a year. But then all of a sudden something major happens. Either you have a pipe burst in your house, you have a major repair, you have mold in your kitchen, you have to completely demolish part of your house. something happens that takes that chunk of money away. Then you have to take a look at that and say, what's really going on? Now, I know you could say, well, that was outside of myself, Kim. Okay, maybe. But at the same time, what if you had stretched in, you had made $200,000? It wouldn't matter that that cost you $40,000 to fix. It wouldn't matter. So you have to take a look at that and say, what's happening here? Be aware of the patterns that are showing up in your life. If you have a few fantastic months where you're getting a lot of business in, and all of a sudden you have 2 months where now you hardly get anything in, and you're back at you're thinking, oh, on track to make 100,000. Whoop, then you have 2 or 3 months where you're not making that. And now you're settling back down into that set point for yourself. And maybe your set point is that $60,000. But yet you think you're on track for it, and then boom, something happens. Then you have to take a look at that. Be aware of it and say, wow, why is this happening? What is truly going on here that I keep hitting the same set point over and over again? And if that's showing up in your world, then you have to ask yourself, okay, am I on track here? Are there thoughts, behaviors, or patterns that are sitting in my subconscious, in my psyche, that are really dictating what's going on? Or do I have a lack of belief here? Am I not truly, fully believing that this is possible for me? And when you start to take a look at those, when you start to ask those questions, you'll start to get the answers that you can start to then see if this is a pattern that is some type of belief that you might be hanging on to. And when you can become aware of a belief or a pattern that you could be hanging on to, then you have the power to change it. But if you aren't aware of it, then it's going to be very difficult to change it. And you're going to find yourself slipping back into the same things, the same old set points over and over again. This is why it's important to truly get in alignment with the fact that you are a spiritual ball of energy and that everything you want is already here. It already exists. That's why we say what you want is also wanting you. You hear that probably so often. Like, what you want is actually wanting you. Why? Because you're energetic in nature, and everything in this world is energetic in nature, and everything comes from energy. You wouldn't have the desire for something unless you also had within it the seed to truly bring it to fruition. When you can get in alignment with that and you all realize that you are part of a bigger whole, you are part of this whole creation that created everything, then you can realize that you are whole, complete, and worthy as you are. And then your belief becomes, you start to believe more in yourself, and that belief starts to generate the realization of the things that you truly want, the things that you are hoping to bring into your realm of existence. Because then you can start to align with it from a perspective of trust and faith, and not from a fear or a hustle or a I got. Instead, you're coming from a state of flow rather than feeling like you're constantly pushing this boulder uphill. Instead, you're creating that momentum and things become much easier and you start to step into that flow. It comes from truly tapping into and understanding that you are absolutely this spiritual being, a complete ball of energy that is part of the whole, that has created everything. Everything that you ever need, everything that you will ever want has already been created. Science tells us that all the energy in the world has always been and always will be. It's not, doesn't have to keep, you don't have to get energy. It doesn't have to constantly reproduce. It's here. It's already here. Which means that everything, since it's all energy, is already created. So everything you could possibly want is here. That's why law of vibration says you must align with it. But you align with it by understanding that first, that you are already part of it, and then stepping out in trust and belief that it is already happening and it's on its way to you. And we can do that through gratitude by saying, thank you so much. I trust that this is being done. It's being worked on. I don't have to worry about it anymore. It is done. And we use the attitude of gratitude to open up the doors of reception so that we can truly step into the desires that we want.